Hello, Mr. Fry's Algebra 1. If you're needing help with this previous assignment, as he's collecting all previous assignments marked missing, it's Unit 8, Homework 5, solving quadratics by factoring. Here's some help for you. Get this in. At least, get what I have done for you. If not, if you can't, get the even ones. But, I'll give you some clues with the even ones too, what to do. So let's get after it. Solve each quadratic equation by factoring. So all you're going to do is do the factoring like we have been doing, just double distribution in reverse. We got to think of two numbers that we multiply. First of all, we set it to equal to 0. It's already set equal to 0, the quadratic equation. And then we think of two numbers that we can multiply and get 12, but add and get 7. Positive, positive, so they're both positive. I split up my x's because x times x is x squared. And the numbers 4 and 3 work. 4 times 3 gives me 12. If I had a 4x and a 3x, that would add up to be 7x. And so we take each one of these, set them to 0, and solve for x. So x equals -4. And x would equal -3. What does this mean? This means where this equation, if I were to plug it into my graphing calculator in Desmos, of which I'm going to show you here in a second, this is where they would cross the x-axis. This is where the line would cross the x-axis at -4 and -3. So for all of the even ones, you could go to Desmos, just Google Desmos, and it's the graphing calculator, okay? And you could type in the equation. I could even put, equals 0. And, it doesn't change anything. So what I'm going to do is, once I type that in, it will give you the graph, and take a look where it crosses the x-axis. I have -4 and -3 right there. Okay, so if you're having problems with these, you could just type these into Desmos and make sure that they're set to 0, or you just have x squared minus 8x minus 9. You just put that into Desmos, and it will show you what the x values, where it crosses the x-axis at. Okay, so that would be very helpful for the even ones. Moving on. 3, two numbers that you multiply together to get -30 would be -6 and +5. And notice I put the negative with the 6 because -6 plus 5 would give me -1x. So my x values are 6 and -5. I set them, each one of these, to 0 and solve for x. This one I have to rewrite to have it set to 0. Then I have my two sections here that I've developed by doing double distribution in reverse, or the FOIL method in reverse. Two numbers that I multiply in order to get -10, but when I add them I get -9. That would be -10 and 1. Set them to 0 and solve. This was where they would be, where the line would be crossing the x-axis. This one I had to subtract 7x from both sides, so now I'm at -10x. Two numbers I multiply to get 16, but I add and get -10. That would be -8 and -2. And x ends up being equal to 8 and 2. I have to move these two things, this over here and this over here, so I'm subtracting 3x and I'm adding a 1. Two numbers I multiply to get -45 would be -9 and +5. I put the negative with 9 because -9 plus 5 gives me -4. And here I am solving for x in each one of those, where it would cross the x-axis. This one, I have to bring this over here. I subtract an x squared. I have to add an 8 over here. Two numbers I multiply to get 12 and add and get -7 would be -4 and -3. Set them both to 0, and I get x equals 4 and x equals 3. This one is just going to be split up like so, and I get -3 and 0. This one I started to do something wrong. All I do is factor out a 2x and I'm left with 3x minus 1. This ends up being, when I put it in Desmos, x equals 0 and x equals 0.05 or a half. This just ends up being x plus 6 and x minus 6, because when I add them together, I get 0. I have nothing in the middle, and that's perfect. X equals, this is supposed to be a 6, negative 6, and this is a positive 6. And then this one just factors out to be 3x plus 1 and 3x minus 1. This ends up being x equals negative 1/3 and x equals a positive 1/3, or as a decimal 0.33, repeating forever and ever. So once again, for those even ones, look up Desmos, plug those in when you set them to 0, and it will point you in the right direction for these answers. Good luck.